What's up, guys? David DeSell here, your host of the Business with the Boys podcast. And as always, joined with my co-host, Landon. And Landon, I must say, you got me all hot and bothered when we first clicked record. You showed up, your button-down shirt was unbuttoned, showing the little squigglies hanging off your chest with a hair or two that you got there. Kind of got me
Bro,
going.
bro, you had me literally hot and bothered by booking this recording at 9:30 when you know I play pickleball in West Omaha till 9. I gotta come to the office, jump in a shower when I haven't got to cool down yet. Yeah, I was a mess. Thank God I had
Oh,
some swag shirt that I could throw on. I was sweating right through it.
all good, just busting your chops. But today we had a really good episode. Larry Rasmussen, he's the CEO and president at Rasmussen Air, Gas and Energy, and um, thankfully to his wife, they now call the company Rage, which is less of a mouthful, and frankly, it sounds pretty damn cool. But this was a badass conversation.
Yeah, I mean Larry's just a badass dude. Let's be honest, he's cool as hell. Um, like met him and it was like step brothers. It was like, did we just become best friends? Like the guy just he's the guy you wanna hang with. And he he's sharp. I mean, full of wisdom. So yeah, it's a like you said, it's kind of a what most people in the outside world would think of as a non-sexy business that the guy, as you'll hear throughout the course of the podcast, has absolute passion about and has completely turned it into a sexy business for him and his team. And they've done some kick-ass stuff. I mean, they have literally worked at SpaceX. Like first time I met him, he's like, "Yeah, you see this? Like, this is a rocket that Elon's building. Like, we did that facility. Like, holy shit!" I mean, he downplays it a little bit, but like as you can tell, when you have clients that are Ford Motor Company, Kellogg's, like they're on some big projects, dude. And the they've only been around 11 years to be at like 50 employees and to grow the way they have is pretty incredible.
Yeah, and also being stopped in their tracks for way shorter than I would have expected. With the tornadoes in Nebraska and really hitting their facility hard. But as we had discussed in the podcast, being able to see the culture that's been built over at Rage come to life with a circumstance like that, and employees were bringing their spouses and families and whatnot to clean up, and just to see that in action, you know given the
Well, he's not even
circumstances,
there,
must,
mind you,
well,
because he's
exactly.
struggling to get back from Cabo because he had other commitments there. Like, yeah,
Wild,
yeah,
wild.
pretty cool.
But yeah, we really think you'll enjoy this episode. And before we dive in and learn from Larry, we are stoked. This was something that we were not planning for. We were not looking for.
Didn't
Uh,
see coming.
didn't see coming. But we actually got reached out to by our first potential sponsor, and through some due diligence with one another, as well as personal experience and personal relationship with Landon, decided to accept them as a sponsor, and they decided to accept us as a partner of theirs. So we want to tell you a little bit about Landjet. This one particularly is based out of Omaha. However, they have locations throughout the country as a company. And Landon, as luck would have it, you actually were on a land jet recently. So first, tell us, like, what is a land jet, and
Yeah.
what'd you guys do? How was the experience?
Yeah. So Landjet it's a Mercedes Sprinter van essentially that
Decked
is
out.
has been completely gutted. Yeah, and it's just like everything that you could do in your office, literally you could do on the Landjet, right? So I mean, PowerPoints, Zooms, Wi-Fi. It's got two TVs in it. It's got a refrigerator, like badass. And so yeah, this weekend wasn't the first time we've utilized Landjet. We actually take it quite a bit. I mean, and it's sometimes it's just for friends at the lake that we want to go have dinner and cocktails, and we know that there's going to be cocktails involved, so they've got a driver, and we just all want to sit and socialize in the back and have fun. Great. Golf trips, get the boys loaded up in there. Great. Right. Like it's a very hands off, easy as hell to use service. They just show up. Drivers are always professional, cool. And I mean, you could do monthly membership stuff with them, however you want to do it. They're kind of changing the game, innovating on corporate travel, and also I don't want to say it's party bus because it's way nicer than like a party bus.
Well,
You know what I mean?
it's a mobile office, right?
Yeah.
Anything you can do in an office, like, meetings or presenting on the screen, be it a PowerPoint or even being on a Zoom meeting, you can do that. And, it's interesting, as we were talking about and considering, having them on, and frankly, humbled and appreciative that they considered partnering with us. What's interesting is you've experienced them before. You've had a great experience. You know them personally. And for
Which is why
me,
we signed off on it, right? Like
yep.
I've got to try
And
it.
yep. And for me, I've always had this dream of I'd love to, like, I've seen the decked out Sprinter vans, and I'd love to turn the podcast into a traveling podcast and go and meet business owners where they're at, spend a couple hours, a few hours with them, tour their office, tour their facility, have some lunch with them, do the podcast in the Sprinter van. So I've had that vision, and then they come into the fold, and I'm like, in the back of my head, I'm like, maybe maybe this is what that could turn into at some point. But also, you know, the majority of the people listening to this are entrepreneurs. And frankly, is your time better suited with your hands behind the wheel or your ass in the back doing some work and maximizing your time? And what is your hourly rate when you start doing that math? And can you be more productive by being driven with a great experience? And what does that look like when you're meeting with a client or a potential customer where you show up and you're like, hey, hop in, we're going to go for a drive to lunch, but we're going to be productive in between? That's pretty sick. So, with
Load your
that
team up,
said,
right? Yeah, like load your
yeah,
team up and like
team
I said,
building
up to 10
events.
hours a day. Go go chop it up, go see clients and be able to work along the way. Hell of an idea.
For sure. Well, thank you for listening to that. And if you are interested, we'd highly recommend it. Landon, literally, I think it was just last week that we're recording this. Last week, you had been on one. And if you just shoot an email over to omaha@landjet.com, again, that's omaha@landjet.com, simply just mention us, or in the subject line, put BWTB, business with the boys, and you get a 10% discount on their services. But with that said, let's hop in, chat with Larry, learn from him. This is an episode that you're really going to love. Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believe me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I make it look easy. Yeah. Mayweather with the defense. I don't care what a critic got to say. I got them picking up the pieces. That me, you really playing with your life. I'm about to come and run it all back. So, Larry, you are the president and CEO of Rasmussen Air and Gas Energy. And frankly, to save me from potentially mispronouncing that, we're going to refer to it as RAGE moving forward, which is an acronym that you guys have adopted. I did not come up with that on my own, in full disclosure. Give us a little quick rundown just to briefly set the stage so folks have context. Like, what is it that you guys actually do? If I'm not mistaken, you work with some pretty cool clients and customers that people would recognize when you say their names. So just briefly set the stage, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Yeah, Rage was fun. I give all the credit to my wife, Rita. She said, we got to come up with something cool that's going to stick. So, of course, as us entrepreneurs do, sometimes we like to have our name involved in the name, and that's where we ended up. So Rage is what we stuck with. And it actually, I mentioned it's got a secondary brand. It's actually caught a lot of wind behind it. So, but our business, and I'll give credit to my wife too, because they ask her, like, she does hair. She's got her own salon. She's got her own business. It's like, what does your husband do? So it's very maybe complicated, so to speak. But So when you build a widget, I don't care what widget it is, like a book, a phone case, a Yeti cup, there's four things you need. You need water from a utility standpoint, you need electricity, you need natural gas, and you need compressed air. So we sell the fourth utility. It's intrinsically safe to do work, called work, inside of a factory. So that's basically us. And in terms of how that works from a distribution model, really similar to a, say, a car lot, Ford dealership. You know, you buy new equipment, you buy used equipment, you got to get them serviced, and you can lease equipment, but you can't necessarily bring your air compressor into a facility to have service on it. So we operate a very large service crew that goes out. I think we operate in about 26 to 30 states right now. And they go out and actually do the service work on the equipment at the customer's location. So that's one aspect of what Rage is. We also have a fabrication and packaging arm. So we'll take air compressors and ancillary equipment, dehydration equipment, pump skids, whatever it needs to operate, put it inside of a container, put it on a skid, deliver the complete product to the end user. We also have a mechanical group and a rigging millwright group. They'll go out and do complete installs on equipment. So customer says, I need an air compressor. It's like, well, who's going to install it? Or who's going to do the electrical? Who's doing the HVAC? It's like the easy button. Just call Rage. That's actually what we say. Just call Rage.
See, that's easy to stick.
It's easy. Yeah. It just rolls right off the tongue.
And when Larry says air compressors, like, I think most people think of like the old home style air compressor.
I just filled up my tires. Is that what we're talking about?
I mean, it could be,
part of it.
but like these things are also on a massive scale too, right? So yes.
Yeah, massive. You know, some of the customers that we have are, you know, auto body shops, right? They're going to have the 10 horsepower, 15 horsepower. They're repairing dents and such and painting and so on and so forth. We also have customers, Ford Motor Company, Caterpillar, General Mills, you know, those companies use, you know, a compressor that they would probably use would be as large, if not larger, than an F-150. They're, you know, large pieces of equipment. They spin really fast. So they're kind of complicated, but yet kind of simple. But yeah, those are when you talk about large, yeah, we're not talking about something that goes in your garage. It's multiple pieces of equipment that are size of an F-150 stacked inside of a factory.
And are you manufacturing those? Are you selling those and installing those? Are you doing all of that? Like, where does your business fit into that process?
Yeah, path to market. So basically, we're a distributor for products. So the manufacturers come from all over the world. Most of what we deal with are you know, U.S. made compressors manufactured, and then we distribute them. So it's a strictly buy resell agreement. We scrape off our margin as we sell it to the end users. Our support comes from the manufacturer. They have all the technology to build the best compressors, and we just basically provide that extra service. We size it right, make sure they got the right power. We can get it through a door. You know, we're doing a job down in Wichita for Spirit Aero right now, trying to jam, you know, 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. That happens though, right? So it's, you know, how do we get it in? So those are the value add things that we bring to our customers. Like, you know, I call them iron slingers. Anybody can go sling iron, right? But, you know, someone has to make sure the customer gets the right size, the right power, can fit it in the hole. And then what do you do after it's there? You know, again, shit breaks. And so we have to be capable to repair that equipment once, you know, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever the case may be. So
growing up in a welding shop, I know how shit breaks all the time because unfortunately we as business owners wish everybody took pride and care of the tools as if they bought them like ourselves, but that doesn't happen. So
does not happen. Yeah.
It's a good thing for Rage, bad thing for the owner, right?
Correct. Yeah. And well, it's not a bad thing. It's education too. You know, it's like, you know, I've had this piece of equipment for 24, 36 months, but I've done nothing to it. It's just like not changing your oil in your car for 5 years. It's gonna wreck. It's gonna leave you on the side of the road. So those are opportunities to educate our customers in terms of, you know, what makes sense to make sure that you're not losing air. So you know, you got some of our customers make product that, you know, you take Spirit Aero, for example. I mean, I can only assume, I don't know for sure, but I mean, if they lose an hour worth of compressed air, they've probably lost in excess of $1 million worth of production. So that's That's the type of numbers we're talking about. It's, you know, electricity, water, natural gas, air. It's like you lose air, you're losing a shit ton of cash.
And are you
And
referencing? Go
shit ton
ahead.
is a unit of measure too. I don't know if you guys knew that. So
Yeah, it's a very large,
very
you
large.
know,
It's
Yes.
universal.
unable to comprehend how large it is, unit of measure.
Yes.
And you're saying Spirit Air, like the airline.
Yeah, no, not the airline, the actual manufacturer. So they build fuselages of 737s for Boeing in Wichita. They also build the cockpit for the Dreamliner. And then once those things are completed, they put them on a train and ship them to Seattle for final assembly. That's the Spirit Aero.
Oh, Aero. Okay, because I was gonna say if it's
Yeah,
Spirit Airlines,
AERO, Aero.
if it was
So
Spirit Airlines, I was gonna ask you to do me a favor and increase your price at every step of the process, just like they do with their
yes,
bag policy.
yeah, yeah. Here's your standard. You get a service technician, but if you want an air filter, an oil filter, it's three
Yeah.
times. We're just gonna buckle this on, right? So
Oh man.
So, so,
that's so
so,
true.
so Larry, now that we kind of know what Rage does, how did you get into this line of business?
That's a great question. It's kind of a fun question. 25 years ago, I started in this silly industry. Um, Once you're in, you can't get out. It's somewhat incestual on top of that. So, you know, it's
Didn't start as an owner though, correct?
no, and that's the fun part. So it was late 90s. I was living in California. My dad passed away, moved back home, central Nebraska, the big metropolis of Rockville, Nebraska, town of 99 people. Yeah, small town strong.
America.
Yeah. But yeah, I moved back to kind of help out with things. And the company I was working for, I was moving quite a bit and wanted to stay close to home. So monster.com, I don't even know if it's around.
Oh, I
Found
remember
somebody
that.
that wanted to hire a sales guy and went to work for a great company, Air Power of Nebraska, right here in Omaha, selling industrial compressors. Bill Penry, love the guy to death. Great guy. I started there, I suppose 99, 2000, something like that. And then in 2006, I got a job with the manufacturer, Cameron Compression Systems. They manufactured out of Buffalo, New York. Excuse me. A lot of refinery business, a lot of air separation business, general manufacturing to a certain degree, and was very successful in selling that product. From there, their path to market changed. They thought they could capture more market, more margin dollars, basically, and got rid of distribution. Basically, just one day, some guy woke up and says, "We're going to go a different way." And then I got my job with Cameron, working directly. Worked my way through there from distributor manager, managed many distributors in North America, call it Edmonton to Houston, and then moved into the engineering group, and then finally finished my career there in 2013 as part of the process gas group. Had an office in Houston, had an office in Calgary, got on a plane, every week, and the industrial North America, South America sales manager said, "Hey, we need a distributor in Omaha, Nebraska that can handle the industrial product line." And I'm like, well, I'm going to float this idea to you, right? I'd put most of the machines in this territory. So yeah, we started in 2013 with Rasmussen Air and Gas Energy, aka Rage, and 11 years ago, and it's been phenomenal. It's been great.
Were you were
We have
you and Rita together when you were on and off airplanes all the time?
I was, yeah. She was not a
Oh,
Larry
she's
fan.
she's
Um,
put up with a lot of shit from you. You do got a good one, brother.
yeah, we might keep her around. Um, yeah, so maybe she might keep me around. Maybe that's the way we
Yeah.
should
I was
say.
gonna say, don't act
Yeah,
tough. We know how it really is.
exactly. We all know. I got a T-shirt that says HWHL, right? Happy wife, happy life.
There you
That's
go.
right.
Um, yeah. So no, we've done this together, honestly, and it's from a partner standpoint, we have the same riverboat gambler mentality, and I think that's what it takes. Waking up in the middle of the night, going, I got payroll due tomorrow. It's 18 months into this deal. Was this the right decision? And she's like, it's the right decision, Larry. You know what I mean? So it's that sounding board that actually just kind of keeps you moving. And also,
Well,
I
that and
mean,
just having somebody that believes in you, right? I mean,
correct.
I know
Yep.
as a male, as a partner, having a wife that like I have a lot of crazy, stupid, maybe good ideas. I don't know, but right, like I know that my partner wife is just like, go do it. And she fully believes in me to get it done. Like, and so there's a lot to be said for that, for sure. Because they're on the
No,
ride
I
with
think,
you, whether or not they signed up for it or not.
well, that's true. And I think, we have a saying on, with people in our own organization, and Rita kind of falls into that mentality too, but it's the GSD. We're looking for a GSD guy, and that's get shit done. So even if you take a wrong turn, you got to fix it, and you just figure out how to do it. And sometimes it's retarding a little bit, let's back up, reevaluate, and then charge ahead again. And she's been amazing for not only me, but our team. We're borderline 50 people, and she's right there with me. She's in the trenches, and I don't know if this would work without that, honestly.
Yeah, it's
That's
cool.
Since you're an acronym fan between RAGE and GSD, get shit done, I'm going to give you an acronym that I would encourage you to take and use because it's incredibly effective. So it's FIFO, and it's not the accounting acronym of first in, first out. It stands for figure it the
Figure
fuck
it
out.
out. Yeah, yeah. That's exactly
So
right.
I feel like he's used
get,
that one before.
yeah, he knew where it was going.
Yep.
Well, and that's
Uh,
that's part of it. It's like you have to. I had when we first started Rage, it was just me and two service technicians, and we were GSD, right? Just getting shit done. Trying to hire a sales guy, and called him, and he's in the industry, and so I keep on him, and he's like, but I don't understand how you were ahead of me everywhere. Like, you already sold that machine, you already sold that machine, you already done this machine. And I'm like, I said, it's not about, me being better than you. I wouldn't be chasing you if that was the case. It's just, I made promises to a handful of people that we're going to put food on their table. And so the motivation may just be different than yours. Your motivation is, your family. My motivation is everybody's family. And if you have that mentality, you FIFO, you GSD, whatever the case is, motivation's different sometimes.
I have said that so many times. Like people see now, and yeah, things are very different. But in the early years, everybody ate before I did and my family did, right? It was like your employees, your rent got paid first, the IRS got paid first, and then you had what's left. But you damn sure made sure that everybody else got paid, and they could put food on the plate for their family, because you asked them to take a leap of faith on you, and you better not let them
100%.
down.
You made promises. You got to keep
Yep.
them.
There is a big motivation there.
Yeah. So that's always fun.
so you said you're pushing near
80.
50 people. I think at least last time we spoke, 47 people total, to be more exact. So as you put it, damn near 50 people.
Yeah.
You started off in 2013,
Correct.
and I would imagine it was you, of course. Who else did you start with?
We had two service technicians that are no longer with us, but still stay in touch with them, still great people. They wanted to take a different path. And that happens. You're developing your vision as you start building this thing. Cause it's just like your palate changes every 7 years. I didn't used to like tomatoes. Now all of a sudden I like fucking tomatoes. I have no idea why, but you learn.
I'm gonna
right?
send
You
that
learn.
clip to my wife because she doesn't like tomatoes.
Good. Glad I could
We're
help.
gonna put it in the calendar for 5 years out and remind her, hey, you like tomatoes
Yep.
now.
Wait till you get to lima beans. So, yeah. So, I mean, you kind of look at, you take stock on whatever ratio you want, whether it's every 6 months or every year. And it's like, well, business is going a little bit of a different direction than, and I think it's important that you work with people to give them opportunities if they don't fit in your organization. And we've done a pretty good job of that, but yeah, there's a long story behind, two different stories behind both those guys too. So it is what it is, but we've learned from it, and it's, they left us. I didn't let them go. And that's when you take kind of restock and you go, man, maybe we could do something better. And since then we have, and we've implemented a lot of different, from getting the right people to start with to how do you keep them, making sure that you're a sounding board for them. You don't want to find out, when they turn in their resignation that, hey, 50 cents would have done a great thing for us, or a new truck would have done, this, so it's, you try to stay out ahead of some of that stuff. And again, you're only as good as the people you have in the trenches with you. And what I was saying, it's like, we get new people. The people who have been with us for a while get it, but new people, like we just opened up Colorado, and I think it was one of the sales guys like, well, I work for, I work for Larry. I'm like, no, you work with me, dude. You're going to be right next to me. If we're going to war together, I'm not, you're not, we're together. And so we all work together. And so, just moving that kind of mentality, that culture, as we will, just, it has to be a team effort. And we don't believe anything else,
Check the ego at the door.
Yeah, exactly. And because it's, what are we after? The same thing, So how do we get there? Sometimes a different path, but we are always after the same thing: success.
Yeah, that's cool.
So
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Just because I feel like, again, your industry and employee base is probably similar to my dad and before he passed, now uncle who owns the welding shop. What are some of the things that you do to incentivize and keep employees? Because let's be honest, that business can be tough a little bit. I mean, I know working with my clients that own businesses in that space, similar, space, you got to educate, because sometimes those guys or gals, like you said, for 50 cents will jump and leave. Right. So sometimes it's a lot of education on, hey, here's why we implemented the 401k. Are you understanding what the match is? What does that mean? And, I try and quantify those dollars when I'm doing education for like clients, employees. So, it's like, you got to make them know that it's not just 50 cents and go buy another case of beer at the end of the month. Makes them jump. Right.
Great question. And it's always going to remain unanswered to a certain degree. And so we're trying to hire a new sales guy in Southern Illinois, and we just had the conversation with him, second interview. And, his question was, outside the industry. So he hasn't sold air compressors per se. He's worked downstream of the air compressors. He's like, well, what kind of training do you have? And I'm like, well, start with, we need to figure out how you learn, right? You're an engineer by trade. So do you learn by, reading and hands-on, or because we have everything, we can point you in the right direction. The 4 different quadrants of how you learn and how you communicate, we need to understand that, but we can cover that. Same thing with employees, we try to sell opportunity, because I think if you get the right person in the seat and you make promises, right? We're going to grow, you're going to have advancement, you're going to have opportunities to excel, the dollars come with it. And, you do this job, you work into a branch coordinator, you work into an SS, sports specialist, or, if we advance to Colorado, you'll have opportunity to move there. I think a big part of it is the incentive of the opportunity and growing with us. I like youth. I love youth inside of our organization, because that carrot seems to be something that they strive for. And, but from a financial standpoint, I think we do a really, really good job of all the standards, right? It's the 401k, the
You have
PTO,
to these days.
You have to. What's the next step? What's the differentiator? What makes you better? I mean, everybody's got a 401k. Everybody pays this. Everybody does this, right? And we have multiple different people in our organization that get paid different ways. And so we just try to be.
But that again can come down to the individual, right? If you're upfront with them, how do you, a guy like myself, and I know David would say, look, I'd rather not have any base income for unlimited upside, right?
Yep.
Like I want to go earn it, right? Some people would say, I'd rather have some base, right? And I'm okay with more base and a little bit of upside. So I think if you set the expectation, right?
Well, I agree. The question to you is, if you have someone that comes in and says, well, I want a base, as opposed to, we call it, I'm going to hunt it, I'm going to kill it, and I'm going to eat it, right? That's the mentality. I wouldn't hire that guy. You know what I mean? It doesn't fit our culture.
Not in a sales role.
No, hell no,
No.
And so, but in the same sense, you get some of this guy in Southern Illinois, perfect example, corporate America. It's, they just got their goals last week, halfway through the year. And there's one aspect of it that allows him to double up that he'll never reach. It's like with us, it's like you hunt it, you kill it, you eat it, and there's no cap. We've got sales guys that, 1 year they'll just kill it. And it's like, well, you're kind of capped out at this. No, I don't care.
Keep killing it.
Sell more,
Yep.
our service technicians, so the culture side of it, right? So anyhow, I feel like we treat people well. We give a sounding board. Our HR director, who happens to be my daughter, Kylie, she she came into the organization 6 years ago, and she's like, we have to get better at listening to our employees. So new hires, 30 days they get a review, 60 days they get a review, 90 days they get a review. But it isn't a review, so to speak. And we just had one last week. It's like, this is your opportunity to review the company. I made a lot of promises when we got you on board. Am I doing, is our team doing what we promised that we would do? And, you know, that's gone a long ways. Because again, it's like, I don't want to find out the day they turned in the resignation that they wanted 50 cents more. I want to know ahead of time. So then it's 6 months, and then at a year. So and then we start listening to them. And, you know, she's amazing when she takes the notes and holds everybody accountable. She's a checkbox girl, right? If that box isn't checked, it's getting checked. So she holds us all accountable in the sense of, well, you said this, right? We told them that we're going to do this. Forgot, you know, we're all busy. It's been a tremendous difference in, you know, customer retention.
That's awesome.
So two things come to mind. One is, Larry, if you haven't yet listened to our episode that we released a few weeks back now with Christine Weeks.
Okay.
The culture that she's built and the benefits that she provides aren't necessarily, what I'm not saying is like, hey, you should provide those same benefits, but the benefits that she provides to her team are so like out of the box, cool things that I think it would get your brain spinning a little bit more and being like, oh, that would be cool if I did this or if I did that. So just, you know, shameless plug, go check out that episode. Two,
I will for sure. Yeah.
Two, and my mother-in-law listens to all of our episodes. So Amber, shout out and thank you for doing so. But
Appreciate
Kennedy had mentioned when we were like early on dating, and you know, came over to visit, she saw like a few books where it was like, I forget all the titles, but one of them was Cult Status, and it was like cult this or cult that. And she was like, hey, like,
red flag.
What's the what's the like what's the deal with David? But they're all
That's
like
funny.
puns on culture, right? And building a great culture. And frankly, that's what a cult is. They've built a great culture for bad reasons. But you can do that same thing
so much so that people will die for it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I know that building culture is important to you, A, based on what you've shared so far, B, based on our previous conversation that we had. And it seems like you've built a culture of get shit done. You've built a culture of accountability, and not just your employees being accountable, but you being accountable and welcoming them to call you out if you're not following through on what you told them to do. And I think that a lot of folks, when they set out to build a company, they struggle with or are curious about, well, what do I do to build a culture? And I don't really feel as if there's a direct answer of, hey, do these three things. So I guess what I'm curious to know with all that in mind, Larry, is throughout from 2013 to present day, like what were some of the things that you did to build the culture alongside your teammates that you have right now? Was it a conscious decision? Did you stumble across it? Like, how has it taken form?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it isn't. Back to Christine, I think you said her name was, you know, I don't think the one size fits all really works in our organization, because we do so many different things. We have different roles for everybody, but it's a great concept, right? And I think, you know, early on what we did was you know, taglines, whatever you want to call them, mantras, right? You got something to live by. I'm not a mission statement kind of guy. I think it's all fluff. Because it's more action, right? But our mantra was add value or don't participate, you know, and I don't care whether it's internal, external. If you've got a meeting at 9 o'clock, show up at 8:45. You add value to your customers. They appreciate it. And all that stuff means that you're going to build a culture of whether it's maximizing, margin or maximizing potential for your employees. So consciously, we put that in place as kind of the culture builder. But you have to get ingrained. I think, Landon said, check your ego at the door, right? So when I'm being held accountable, I'm checking my ego at the door, and that builds culture. But I also think that, understanding what matters to your teammates, this is a big deal to him. I got Wednesday nights, soccer. I'm the coach. I got to be there no matter what. It's like, okay, sounds good. We'll make it work. Because what happens is a team, you build the team mentality. It's like, you go, Joe. I got this for you, right? We're going to make sure that everybody wins and you're part of this team. So I think the aspect of add value, don't participate, understanding what matters to your employees, and then building the team concept, that all fits into the culture. And I would say right now, this whole thing may change 5 years from now. The ability to change as your organization either grows or changes, or you get into a different market, whatever the case is. I can honestly say that Colorado market is drastically different than Murray, Kentucky, right? So what matters to them? So it goes back to, if you understand your employees and understand what matters to them, you have to be diverse in terms of your culture, because it's ever changing. But I think, again, I'm a change adopter. I love change. It's like not to change just to change, but if we can do it better, my ego is nothing. I said yeah, let's
Green
do
and
it.
Growing or ripe and rotting, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. Are you thriving or are you surviving? That's the difference. And I think a lot of what we do is, I always tell the guys too, I got all these stupid little sayings, but don't feather the gas or don't feather the brake, boys. Just let's get the gas down. And I think the leadership that we have actually pulls together that if you hire people that believe in what you believe in and they are in the same boat rowing in the same direction, that usually creates the culture.
Yeah, I would say, just watching your organization from afar too, Larry, you run it kind of like a family dynamic, right? Like there's nobody that doesn't get to have input, right? And I think that's pretty cool. It's building individuals up no matter what their role is on the team. It could be, somebody who's maybe part-time or minor role, but that's still a big freaking role, and celebrating that. And so I think that's just knowing that you care and that everybody else around them cares. I think the culture kind of takes care of itself from there. And that's pretty special.
But you
I
have
know
to
that's how I like to
evaluate it,
try and
though.
run it. Yeah,
Absolutely. But you have to evaluate, and it's,
yep.
and
If I don't care about you personally, you can't be on my team. Like
correct.
And vice versa,
Yeah.
right? If you don't care about me, then you shouldn't be on my team. That's how I look at it.
So I don't know if I answered your question, but I think, a lot of what we do is rooted in culture and finding the right people that fit that culture.
I've got a follow-up question real quick, David. So you're in a bunch of different marketplaces now. Are you going out and just finding someone? I don't imagine you're having somebody from Nebraska move to Kentucky to Colorado, right? Are you going out and just finding somebody there to be the general manager of that state or that? How are you building that out? Because it's got to be tough.
All organic. It's all organic. We try to dip into different. So we needed a sales guy in Illinois for the centrifugal side of our business, the more sophisticated technology, I'll say. I didn't want to get someone that was already in the business because I know most of those people and they don't fit our model. And so I started with bearing manufacturers, guys that are selling, bearings, whether it's Timken or SKF or whatever, because shit spins really fast. We ended up finding a guy, and I'm pretty hopeful that we'll get him hired, but he is from the pneumatic valve side of things downstream. So when you're doing work to move products or whatever the case is, it's all done pneumatically. He should open up a new avenue for us to, maybe additional people that are not in the compressor industry directly, but have some sort of experience. And, whether it be, his college that he went to, or a coworker, or, a customer's, competitor, so to speak. That's how we've been successful. Colorado, we got a little lucky in terms of tried to buy a company and was unsuccessful. And in that process, got to meet some really, really cool people. And so 3 or 4 of those people are on our staff out there right now. So it's all organic. It just depends on, what that dichotomy looks like. The fun part that we have right now is as word gets out, whether, we're very active on social media and try to, portray the truth. This isn't a sham of any kind. But we get people calling us. Great example, Kansas City. Some guy walked into our shop and it's like, hey, I want to work for Rage. I'm like, well, how do you know Rage? Right. Well, I used to work for a competitor and then I kind of left them because it got soured on the industry, but I've heard a lot of good things about you. Right. So he came in on January. 3 people in Colorado know that we're out there like ping, 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 ping. Right. I want to work for Rage. So, I think if you it's like anything else, you put the work in up front, you get to start harvesting some of that extra work that you've done. And again, I great things happen to great people. I tell that to our organization all the time. Do great things will happen. And you're a great person. And that's kind of where we ended up. And we're just extremely blessed in that sense. No question about it.
And I do believe you answered my question around the culture, my interpretation of what you shared. So you started off, or at some point you said that you don't really like mission statements, and I would imagine that it's not that you don't like mission statements, it's that you don't like words on the wall that aren't rooted in reality and what's actually happening. Because that's a lot of times what happens with mission statements is they're written once and forgotten about, or put on the wall and a box is checked, but it's not disseminated throughout the organization. And it seems like from a cultural standpoint, you're really focused on doing what you say you're going to do, empowering people, making sure that you're there for others, that those people are there for each other to step up when they need it. They're doing the right thing when nobody's looking. And that in and of itself is creating culture through being transparent. And I guess you could even say vulnerable, in that, like, you're creating a culture of feedback, both to be shared and to be received. And you're no different than anyone else. If they have an issue or they have something that they want to share with you of maybe where you dropped the ball, you welcome that. And a lot of people don't do that. So from my interpretation of what you've shared, I think those are the things that you've done a really good job with so far.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate that. Yeah, I probably try to stay away from flat ass statements like we don't, I don't like mission statements, but you're right. It really is in doing, not so more just throwing shit up on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the mantra that you carry yourself every day. And you get people, it's like, well, you're working in the business, you should work on the business, right? And it's like, well, I can hire people to work on the business. I mean, I'd like to be ingrained, and we've done that. So I like to be in, because it does mean a lot to people. I travel still every week. I take Rita with me as the exception because we don't have small kids at home. But I was in Colorado last week, and hey, where can I add value? Let's go see people if you need me. If it's not, if it's, I might be just a pretty face and a credit card. I don't know, but that helps too. So.
Well, it's interesting that you share. It's interesting that you share working in and on the business, because like Landon and I, when we come across business owners, oftentimes they're stuck in the business and they need to work with someone like ourselves to allow them to take a step back and work on the business. But then there's other people like you who actually want to be in the business and don't feel stuck when they are, that needs to outsource an additional set of eyes to just help oversee and make sure, well, why wouldn't you just do it this way? And you're like, well, I didn't even think of that because I'm tunnel vision here,
Right.
working on X, Y, and Z. So I just kind of had an aha moment when you said, no, I want to be in the business. And there's a difference between that and being stuck in the business.
Totally different, totally different. And I think you have to understand your strengths, right? And I'm an old guy, and I've been around this for a while, and it's like, I'm not very good at that, whatever that is, right? I'm really good at this, and understanding that from an internal standpoint. And I've started this new deal when we're hiring people too, because I think it's super important. And it goes back to a situation that we had, which turned out to be extremely positive. But I do believe that everybody is good at things and bad at things. But I do believe that everybody is really good at two things, like exceptional, over the top, right? Now, but smoking crack, you don't want that guy, right? You don't want the guy that's really good at that. But nonetheless, it's, so we started asking these people and it's like, okay, so I'm a firm believer that everybody is good, exceptional, over the top, better than anybody else at two things. What are they? Tell me what they are, because that gives me a path into where we could potentially put people. If they fit everything else, right? They're good
And
people.
maybe it's not what they walked in the door to interview for, right?
100% true.
Again,
100%.
you're not arrogant enough to round peg, square hole them into that position. If they're going to tell you two other things and you go, well, shit, all right, maybe I need to develop, or we do need somebody in this role. Maybe it goes somewhere different.
That's exactly right. And that's why we do it. And you try to get your,
I love that. I'm going to use that personally.
Yeah, because and do some self-reflecting, right? It's like, you can say it, but then it's like, okay, Larry, what are you good at, right? What are the two things you're really good at? And it's like, I'm very good at educating people on what they need. And I know people. I know those are the two. So why not use that, right? So back to working in the business, right? I can walk into a customer's office and educate them on what they need, and I'm really good at that. But I'm not so good at working, on the business. So get an ops guy, get a, accounting manager, get somebody that can pull all that shit together, and you're just a better organization for it.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, a lot of people can't pull off just simply working in the business, but a guy like you can, because you're not arrogant enough to think that you have it all figured out and you're willing to have other people put eyes on it on your behalf. So you are essentially working on the business. You're just outsourcing it, right?
Yeah, probably.
I mean, that's because I'm with you. I love working in the business, and that's where it's nice for David a lot of times to grab me by the ass and say, hey, this might be a smarter way to do this, right? Because I am full gas all the time, as you know. And
yeah.
So yeah, he can grab me and put me in check sometimes and say, hey, and it's like, yeah, you're right.
And if you get the rest of your team to think the same way, so I keep injecting here, I don't know, I got a passion about our business and about our people and about what we do. So like over the top. You give me an opportunity to talk about rage, it's going to be tough to kind of like turn the off button, but
we don't want to turn you down, bud. Go.
But as we start to expand, so we have just opened Colorado. It's our 6th branch right now, and we were successful because we created this culture of a I don't want to say mom and pop, but I'm going to say mom and pop. Actually, it's like we're a team. We work together. So how do we do that in these other locations? And so one thing we've adopted is we don't use the word manager, director, boss, nothing like that. So in a branch, we have a branch coordinator, and this wasn't my idea. These are people that I hired, ops guys, to say, like, how do we get better, right? It's Jono and Tanner, studs, both of them. It's like branch coordinator, not a branch manager. SS is a support specialist, not some sort of, and they're not direct reports to each other. They just literally work together. Then you have your service side of the organization. They get their direction, so to speak, from where they're going on a day-to-day basis from the branch coordinator. And then when they get in the field and shit hits the fan, they got their SS to support them. It's all about support. And then you got your salespeople that are actually front lines, hunting it, killing it, and eating it, and sharing that food with the rest of the organization. So there's all these people in one boat rowing in the same direction. Now, I'll pit them against Kansas City, and I'll pit Kansas City against Omaha. It's like, hey, why are they doing so much better than you? I don't think you got it today, right? And it's fun play, but at the same time, it's like, well, those son of a bitches, they're not going to beat me, right? So then next thing you know, you kind of like, and it's fun. So I don't like that mantra of, I like teams. I like to build a team. So Denver's got their little group, mom and pop, right? Oh, hey, Tanner or Tyler, I know you can't deliver that today. I'll take care of it for you, right? Customer gets taken care of. Everybody wins. So that's something from a culture standpoint that, again, I didn't develop it. These two great individuals that I hired to put in the operations role, like, we got to do this. I'm like, fucking do it. Let's get it done.
That's what I hired you for.
So,
well, it's cool. I try with people that I work with formally, not people that I don't, because typically unsolicited advice isn't well received. But when they're paying I can say whatever I want to them because that's what they're paying for. Um, so like I've had a few people that be like, well, my employee's this, or someone being like, I'm just having trouble like managing these people. And it's like, well, first off, like, to be semantic, like, those are not your employees. Technically, yeah, sure, but those are your teammates.
Correct.
You don't manage people. Like, what are they? Sheep? Like, lead them. And like that small subtlety. So to hear the language that you're using internally and focusing on the semantics of the words that you're choosing to use and the titles that you've, because titles are all bullshit. So you might as well have titles that actually serve the mission and make people feel valued, and for you to show them that they're valued, and not just, again, I don't like the idea of a sales manager. I like the idea of, if you're going to have sales in there, like a sales leader, like just little things like that goes a very, very long way. I am curious. So we intentionally did not dive deep into this when we first connected, because I wanted to understand it more on the podcast. But there was a sales guy who wasn't the best sales guy in the world. But he was a really good human and was very talented. So you had just mentioned how, hey, we're typically good at two things. Help me understand the process of that person being hired, going into sales, having the realization. Most people would say, oh, you can't cut it, so you're fired, we're moving on. But instead, that person found another seat on the bus. Walk us through that journey and evolution of that person in particular.
Yeah, to be clear, I think everybody is good at a lot of things, but I think they're exceptional at two things, right? You know what I mean?
Fair.
Not to correct you, David, but I'm just like,
Listen, I
I
was
think
being
it's
semantic.
really
You can be
important.
semantic in return. That's fine.
And yeah, this is a great story, because you don't use the word, love lightly, but I love this kid. I mean, I'm just like, he is um everything you want in a friend, in a coworker. He's a father, he's a husband, he's just like, I mean, we think a lot alike, right? Anyhow, he's a great dude. And so we hired him as a salesperson. But we threw him in the deep end. Let's be clear. I mean, we're just like, hey, we had somebody quit. We need you to pull into this role. He didn't know anything about the business. He knew something about sales. It wasn't industrial sales. It wasn't outside sales. And he was coming along, but it was going to take some time. And meanwhile, again, competitor had two people, a service guy and a sales guy, call me on a Saturday and said, we want to come to work for Rage. And this individual, he was already doing things outside the sales role. Like, he would sell a mechanical install, then he would go install the pipe. And it was perfect. Plumb, level, communication with the end user was phenomenal. He'd do the startup, the service work, like pushing the button to start the compressor. And you just kind of see that he was team Rage. He loved who he worked with. I don't know if he actually loved the work he was doing. So he found his own path. And back to your point, Lynn, it's like, I'm not so set in my ways to say, no, you can't do it that way. You're a sales guy, right? It's like, okay, let's follow this a little bit. Let's kind of see what happens here. Well, then this other individual sales guy shows up, and I'm like, put him in the same room, and I'm like, can you get along, right? And then they hit it off. They're built from the same cloth, right? They're Rage guys. Well, Vinny's like, well, I want to install mechanical installations. That's what it's my passion. I'm like, well, I can see that. It's like phenomenal. Everything you do.
Perfect.
Took him out. I put him in right head, like in the fire. Like, you are now running this division. This is your division. The mechanical, you got millwrights and you got rigging underneath of you. I just want to see. I mean, he succeeded really, even from the sales role. Maybe not the best salesperson. He was getting it, but I mean, he's a GSD guy, honestly. He's just like, he gets shit done. And so when we put him in that role and he had a salesperson, I mean, he took that particular division and grew it from, untrackable. So, I mean, let's call it a few $1,000s. And last year he did just under 3 million in that division
Holy
in our
shit.
in our small little company, you know. And it's like, and we support him though. It's like everything else. Like if you want someone like that and you don't want to bribe him, right? You don't want him to feather the brake. It's like,
Take him
what
off
do
the
you
leash and let him run.
what do you need, Ben? Right? What do you need?
Yeah. What
So
can I give you to keep going?
yeah. And so high expectations, right? And this year is going to be better than last year. Next year is going to be better than this year. But it's, you know, he's just, and plus you talk about leading by example, you know, he has all these direct reports. I got photos from this week. He was up in Sioux City at Cargill, large corn milling company.
Very large.
He's got his 5-point harness. He's on a scissor lift. He's wrenching on stuff. And it's like, yeah, you do that, I'll do this, right? So, you know, he's just, yeah, what a great story. And I literally just love the kid to death. He's just a great individual. So,
And he's happier, right? I mean, he's doing
much
what he loves
happier.
now.
Yep,
Right.
exactly. So, yeah, that's a great story. Thanks, David, for bringing that up. That's a feel good right there.
Well, it's also, it brings up another topic that I want to unpack with you. So earlier in the conversation, without saying this directly, basically the way I heard it was I've come across and heard about companies, particularly friends that I have and people that I know in the pharmaceutical industry, that are in sales. And I hear all the time that their commission is capped. Their commission structure changes all the time. And when they do really well in a particular territory, they pick them up and move them to a different territory and they got to start all over again. And it's like, the fuck are you guys doing? Why, like, what are you doing? Like, do you not understand that humans run on incentives? And if you cap their commission or you're constantly changing the game on them, like they're going to leave. And that's why in that industry that I'm picking on right now, people hop from one company to the next, and they hop right before that thing changes so they can continue to maximize their opportunity. And it's just frankly stupid that these companies are structured this way. Like, if anything, a salesperson who's commission oriented, the owner of that company, their goal should be for the salesperson to make more than what that owner is making. You know, it's just, it's ridiculous to me. So as you can see, I get passionate about when people do stupid shit. But anyways, my point of teeing that up is, this person, you said, you know, untrackable at the beginning, but it was basically a division that didn't exist, right?
Correct.
You said a couple, 2,000-3,000 of revenue, if you will. And he may not be in sales, but he built a separate division that could handle $3 million or more and growing of additional work. But in order for that to be possible, your vision needs to be 10 times that of every team member that you have in order for them to be able to live their vision and fulfill their vision inside of the organization. And I guess what I'm getting at is, what does it look like on your end to continue to move the needle? Where, again, at the very beginning of the conversation, you said how, you know, your drivers are different than most people because you're not worried about putting food on your table. You're worried about making sure that everyone around you can eat as well. So what I'm getting at is, you seem, as you're talking about this stuff, you seem incredibly unsatisfied, but blissful at the same time. It's a saying that I came across called blissful dissatisfaction, where you seem very happy, but never satisfied in a healthy way, in order to allow for technically what they are, employees, to be able to serve as intrapreneurs within your entrepreneurial vision. So I don't even know what my question is outside of what are your thoughts on that? And how do you ensure, I guess, that your vision continues to grow? Otherwise, doesn't matter how good your culture is, people are going to leave if they feel capped.
Correct. Yeah. Entrepreneur, Patrick Bet David, right? I think, I don't know if he's coined that term, but that's something I've attached my saddle to for
PBD.
sure. Yeah. So yeah, interesting you say that. And I think a lot of it is, there's only one of me. So if you continue to grow, you're going to have additional people to think the way I do so we can actually promote the same mentality. Now I can, and we do, you're out. And as far as the, blissful and dissatisfied, that's to a T. Yeah. And I think it comes back to, I like to build shit. Right. I like to build whatever it is, it's like from a fabrication shop to a business, that's kind of what we do. And I see opportunities and I struggle not taking advantage of them to a degree of the benefit to the rest of our company. Because I think that we have great people where we're at right now, but if we can augment that with another great person that brings $1 million worth of revenue to the team, and that's how we kind of operate, then why not go do it? We recently expanded, like I mentioned, Colorado, Wyoming, Montana. We see oil and gas in that sector being a big market that we want to go get. So staying
Remind
hungry.
me after we're off here, by the way, an introduction I need to make to you if you're in Wyoming.
Yeah, we're totally embedded in Wyoming right now, which is it's a good thing. Great state. But yeah, so it's where else can we move the needle? Where else can we give opportunity to our team members? Where else can we grow? And just not being satisfied is the best way I can understand it.
Are you an EOS guy, Larry?
EOS, help me. I don't know that one.
Entrepreneur's Operating System book Traction. Have you ever read the book Traction?
I've not.
Oh, you'd love that.
It's funny because I feel like you are an EOS guy without ever obviously reading Traction.
Really?
Yeah.
Now I'm intrigued.
I'll send you a copy. You'll love it, but it's, you start with your 10-year big vision, right? And then you break it down to 3 years, what's it take to do 3 years, and then 1 year, and then you break it literally down into what do we have to do on a week-by-week basis to build this big vision. And you bring everybody's got to be involved, right?
100%.
Everybody's got their role in it, and the accountability and just everything from a check-in stand. It is worth the time for sure.
And I like to keep it a little bit more simple, but you're absolutely right. I use the sprint marathon methodology. All right, what are we going to do in this sprint? We got 100 yards to make differences, and then we're going to start working on the 24 mile or 26 mile. It's like, let's do this. It'll help us get its head start on the marathon. But the vision is like right now, but don't lose track of that. Don't lose track of what we're trying to get to in the future. So
that's EOS to a T, right? It's breaking everything down into 90-day rocks. Every individual has their rocks that they're committing to in that 90 days. And then you're having your accountability check-ins, and it's just, everybody's rolling the rock up the hill in the same direction.
Well, you have to, and that's the key, I think. So
I'll bring that next week when I see you.
Okay.
I'll get you a copy of it. It's awesome.
That's cool. I like stuff like that too. We just kind of embarked on a new, so you get the personality test, right? Whether it's Gallup, Myers-Briggs, whatever the case is. And
what do you use? Do you use Colby? Which one do you use?
We haven't used anything. We just, really? It's kind of the gut feeling, so to speak. And as we grow, we're trying to kind of balance into that. But, I think I read people well enough. I think we have enough people that, but to digging into it a little bit more, we're probably, I don't know. I go back and forth in terms of, do we want to rely on some AI or some robot or some list? But at the same time, I think there's value in it, but I haven't dug into it enough to figure that out. But one thing that we started using is this DISC assessment, DISK. I think that has a lot of value. I think understanding how people communicate and trying to mold your listening, communication, whatever skill that you need to match theirs actually makes a lot of sense. So that's probably more so the route we're going to go. I always think that from a sales standpoint, if you're a Rage guy and you have some sort of a value add mentality, we can make you a salesperson at Rage. You have the right makeup and you have the right support. You know, we have all kinds of people are going to pile on and you know, they're right next to you in that boat. And we're all rowing the same direction. So I don't know. It's I'm open for suggestions, but we haven't done anything yet. Probably I don't know if we will. You know, I'm not
And so if it
adverse
ain't broke,
to
don't
it,
fix
but
it.
well, but as we grow, there's only going to be, you know, I'm not in on every interview right now. I like to
Are you
be.
making
I
the
like
final
to.
decision though? I
No,
mean, you're no.
no, no. I just, you know, our vision for the next 3 to 5 years won't allow that, and there's no reason to, you know, try to do it if the vision is that you're not going to be able to succeed. So let's get the right people in the right seats that are making those decisions now, and trust them. You know, that I think that's a big thing too from a culture standpoint. You know,
That's the biggest thing.
well, and I'm a firm believer that you learn more from failure than you do success. And you know, from a Jono standpoint, or whoever we have making these decisions, and they make one bad hire, it's like, okay, why? Why was that? Or how did we get to this decision? You know, just kind of unpack it a little bit, and so let them fail. You know, let them whether it's this is probably a bad example from an employment standpoint, but it's like that process didn't work. All right, okay, what are we going to do? And I don't know. I've just always seemed to kind of look forward, kind of keep the Jelly Roll. You know who Jelly Roll is?
Fucking love Jelly Roll. Best concert
Right.
my wife and I've been to. Yes. He'll
So
be
he's got
here
a
in 2 weeks, by the way.
okay, there you
Western
have it.
Nebraska. Yeah. I've been a big Jelly
He
Roll guy since before Jelly Roll got big. I'm talking like 7, 8 years ago. And yeah, yeah.
he has a line in a song. I don't know what song it is, but he said, I got, you know, I ripped the rearview mirror off this old Ford so I can only look ahead of me and not behind me. And I think there's, you know, it's a lyric in a song, right? And everything. But it's how you interpret it. It's and how you utilize that in your organization, I think is kind of cool because yeah, we worry about how to get better and you can only do that from mistakes. But once you've dissected it, move on. You know, let's go get the next, you know, the next deal, the next, you know, success story for a customer, whatever the case may be. So,
God, I use that motto with my wife all the time. I'm like, babe, we talked about this. I apologize. Move on.
yeah,
She
I'm
doesn't
sure.
buy it.
I'm sure that works real well. So,
Yeah.
Well, that's actually a
That's
nice segue to a point that I wanted to bring up, Landon. Have you, Larry, have you come across the book, The Five Love Languages?
I have not. You guys are enlightening me.
Oh,
oof.
goodness.
My
Well,
wife just did hers again this week. She informed me.
so the five love languages are the ways that you like to receive love. So it could be words of affirmation, it could be gifts, acts of service, you know, so on and so forth.
Physical
But
touch, all of that. Yep.
yeah, so how we tend to give love to our spouses and whatnot is the way that we like to receive love, but they may have a different love language, and therefore you're like, you know, it's like, well, I did this, and they're like, well, I just wanted this, and you're like, what? Like, but I did. So there's a disconnect. So when you read the Five Love Languages book and take the assessment, you can take the assessment. It seems like that's what Tay recently did. Um, you're able to get on the same page of one another to figure out how should I be loving my spouse the way that she wants to be loved.
That's cool.
And I share that because with those personality assessments, particularly the disc profile, you had made mention of, it allows you to get insight as to their communication style and the way they like to communicate and be communicated with. And your team's job as leaders bringing on these new people is to be a chameleon to communicate with these new folks the way in which they receive information the best to increase the likelihood that they succeed within your organization. So for those purposes, whether it's the disc or something like that, I'm glad that you guys are striving towards integrating something like that as you grow. If nothing else, it provides your leaders with additional insight on how do I communicate
That's what I
with
was gonna
Johnny
say.
compared to Sarah or whoever.
It's probably going to help your executive team make their decisions or make their lives easier on how to communicate for sure.
I think and that's a great. I'd love to. I'll have to dig into that a little bit more. I think you're absolutely from the communication standpoint. It's the efficiencies that it creates is what we're after, and not to downplay the uh, my wife Rita. I'll have her make sure she reads this book, right? So and take the assessment. Maybe we'll take it together. Not to downplay that, but
it is a good practice
I
because
think
mine
it's
is
cool.
definitely not like Tay's. And so like, yeah, I know if I want to impress her, it's not go give her a big old hug and a smooch. She likes to receive gifts and she likes acts of service. So it could be me unloading the dishwasher and she's gonna appreciate that, you know. So once you know, it helps for sure.
It's interesting. I wouldn't even call it a side gig because it's not even it's not a money making situation, but for whatever
A
reason, I get
hobby.
asked.
I have a lot of those.
I do. I don't know how it came about, but I got asked to do a wedding shoot 7 years ago, and so I don't know. I guess it must work out, but I do a lot of weddings, so that could be kind of something cool.
Meaning like you
To
officiate them, like
I do,
Preacher Man
yeah,
Larry. I like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I can see
Oh,
So
that. And you
Larry,
have a
we
distinguished look. For our listeners that aren't watching on YouTube, yeah, you have a very distinguished look. So I mean, yeah, I can see this.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's but I have one a week from Saturday. It's my niece, and they're great couple. So I mean, that could be kind of cool. It's thank you for doing that. I think that'll be interesting to give to them.
and
Yeah.
honestly, the five love languages, that's a book that you can read in a sitting. So like
Perfect.
I would just crush that beforehand. Side note, I got asked by my cousin and her fiance in October to officiate their wedding. And I have never done it. So guess who my new mentor is, Larry.
So yeah, I'll help you. It's there's certain things in there. We kind of the first one was nerve-wracking and it went off pretty well. And um, yeah, there's a lot of funny stories about that one. But and I try to incorporate one line in everyone. So I guess in the very first one, it was like I had to get all the guests outside to the patio, and that was my goal at the end of the ceremony. And I'm like, so the bride and groom would invite you to join them for a cocktail out on the veranda. And so my son-in-law is like, "Where'd you come up with veranda?" I'm like, "Heat of the moment, man." So every wedding now I say veranda. I think it's kind of funny. So I don't know if everybody knows what the veranda is, but the key is to get it on paper all the way from the very walking through the door to if there's a blessing at the reception. That's your job. And I chart it by time and try to stay on track. But I forgot the blessing on the very first one, and that was a scramble. So anyhow, more than happy to help you, David.
Well,
So
like
He's
you
got the
said,
check boxes.
you learn more from your failures. So I'd like to learn from yours.
yes, it would
you
be
know.
better for your cousin. Yes. So
And who knows? Maybe if I do a good enough job, it won't be a one-time thing, and I'll join your unpaid hobby.
the cult.
I
The
can't
cult.
imagine why
So
people don't ask me to officiate their weddings. I mean, come
you
on.
show up without your shirt. You just show up without your shirt. It'd be weird. It'd be like
Playing the big booty mix in the background.
it's like, whoa, what do we
Yeah.
do here? I don't know if this is appropriate. So,
The
Grandma, don't worry, it
the
gets better.
officiants up there dropping F-bombs. Oh no.
Yeah, exactly. Oh
Uh,
shoot, crazy. So, good stuff.
Good stuff. I think there's a lot of good stuff in here, Larry, and I would just say from the outside looking in, either you're a great talker or you have a really great business that you get to talk about, because the things that you shared are what you read about in books of the way that companies should be run. That said,
But he hasn't read the books.
but I would say that if there's any Rage team members that are listening to this and they're like, no, Larry's full of shit, that's not how it is, please reach out to me and tell on him so
Yeah.
we can
Yep.
call him
Yeah.
out.
Yep.
But it's really cool to um and I guess at the risk of being incredibly offensive, hearing about uh an air and gas company of all types of companies that are out there, like frankly, a lot of cooler companies, like tech companies and stuff like that, to focus as much on culture and the development of people, and how meticulous you are with your
To give a
decisions
shit that you
is
have.
really, really cool, because you don't typically get that from what I would consider a blue collar style business. It's really
It's
neat.
interesting. Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's about passion though. You know what I mean? You can make anything sexy. You really can. And I love to
It's a
make
good
the
point.
compressed air industry sexy. And it is sexy if you think about it. I mean, you go back to
Dude,
COVID, right?
you've worked in SpaceX, right?
I
Like to
have.
unpack that,
Yep.
like that, what's not cool, and these sexy companies and cool companies don't exist without rage, or someone like
No,
rage at least, right? So
no,
you can
exactly.
always, you always can, like you said, you always have that to fall back on.
Our social media group asked us to kind of like, because they're not compressed air and gas, compressed gas people, right? It's like, what in the world does somebody use this much air for, right? So we started talking about it, right? Bacon, who doesn't like bacon? So we take care of a handful of pork producers in the area. I mean, and this is mind blowing, right? So between the 5 or 6 that we actually service air compressors, I think they kill somewhere in the neighborhood of 100,000 hogs a day, and that somebody's got to feed the world. We're right in the middle of the
Yep.
breadbasket. So that's sexy. We do a lot with coffee. We do a lot with Cargill, all these corn millers, right? That's artificial sweeteners. So Truvia, Splenda, so on and so forth. Deal with a company in Illinois that makes LaChoy soy sauce, right? It's pretty cool shit. And all that stuff can't happen unless you have air, and it's intrinsically safe. You can't. So I think this kind of helps maybe set the vastness of it. But not Cargill, Kellogg's here in town. They got a conveyor belt. I don't know, call it 12, 18 feet wide. And they got Fruit Loops on it. It's 4 foot wide path of Fruit Loops going into a 4 foot by 4 foot by 4 foot tall box. And that's the beginning of the packaging process. When that box gets full, it's got a photo eye that says, hey, I'm full, right? So they have to get that product off center. So they have this big pneumatic arm that slides everything over 4 feet, and this product goes like this, then it goes like this, and then it moves it off center 4 feet, goes into another 4 foot by 4 foot by 4 foot box. You can't do that with electricity because you'll blow the place up because of the grain dust in the air. So it has to be done with air. So that's just a good example of why air and not something else. So
I have a
Hate to be the poor bastard that figured it out the hard way that they couldn't use electricity.
that happens. Yeah.
and I'm really glad that you brought it from air to these are the types of folks that we work, because you had mentioned like Caterpillar and Ford, and yeah, that's cool, but to share like bacon and cereal or whatever it is. So we have this client who they're out of Omaha, and they're a steel fabricator, and fasteners, and mainly like steel rebar, and that steel rebar just gets put inside of concrete, right? And
Yep.
it's like, one could think like, who cares, right? It's just going in concrete. But in talking with them, one of the suggestions that I made was you need to, on a quarterly basis with your all team meetings that you hold, you need to have pictures of the schools and the bridges and the office buildings and the hospitals and all those things to connect the guys on the floor that may get into the mindset of this is a part that gets thrown in concrete anyways, to I build schools, I build bridges. So I'm glad that you tied air to, I mean, I love bacon, so that was a good one to start with.
I eat it every morning.
It's its own food group, guys. I mean, it's
It
its own.
is.
It's at the top of the pyramid.
If someone doesn't like bacon, they cannot. This is not
Un-American.
this is not a lie. My mom was dating someone, and he didn't like bacon, and I straight up said to her, I was like, he can't be trusted. You have to break up with him. And she swears that was not why, but it's interesting how just over a
Didn't
week
work
later
out.
they broke up.
Interesting. Yeah.
But yeah.
I don't know if that's you take credit or not, David, but
Oh, I do. I do.
Poor
She
mom's
won't admit it.
heartbroken,
She
but
won't
yeah,
admit
you
it,
ruined your
but
mom's love life. I mean, holy cow.
Let's pivot a little bit, talking business owner and some of the, we've talked about a lot of the fun things and challenges as far as building team wise. Let's talk about some shit that's out of your control that recently happened, and those of our listeners in
Oh
Omaha
yeah.
and this end of the state will know this, but Rage was very much affected by the recent tornadoes and storms that we had here. Let's unpack kind of, because we're sitting here talking about how shitty of a situation it would have been, and you're going, yeah, but it was actually pretty cool to see, So give us that breakdown.
Yeah, and even on a going, not so much the Wayback Machine, but the 2019 floods that we had in this area, we were impacted
Fortunately,
also.
as part of that.
Yeah, we had 30 inches of water through our entire facility, no flood insurance, lost $2.5 million, right? So it was a significant event. Fast forward 5 years, it's
Makes me
five
feel better
years
about the
and
loss of my house and what I had in
exactly.
there. It just wasn't that much.
It was significant. So fast forward 5 years and 30 days almost, right? So
Yep.
45 days. March 13th, 2019 to April 26th, 2024. So yeah, we were affected. We got hit by one of the massive EF3 tornadoes. We had lost a 10,000 square foot warehouse, about $4 million worth of product in it. So yeah, luckily, and this goes back to, everybody has eyeballs on me. It's like, well, what are we gonna do? It's like, well, this shit would kill most people, right? We have a track record from 2019 flood. And even though it was an impact, we grew that year, substantially grew that year. And it's because we have the team that can just roll up their sleeves and dig right in. So that was a Friday, April 26th, Friday, 3:30 in the afternoon. We had sent not we, uh, our HR manager said, everybody go home, work from home. Everybody's got basements, right? Be safe. 5 people decided to, the macho. It's like, I'm going to ride this thing out. And I don't think they'll do that again. But they're safe, right? Everybody. And I always say, because, in Western Douglas County, Eastern Nebraska, that tornado, just 2 miles north of us took out 140 houses in one neighborhood. And so we had nobody hurt. Every team member got to go home to a house. They got to sleep in their own bed. And so all this other material stuff is just material stuff. And I don't even know. I mean, I reflect quite a bit knowing those 5 individuals, and they're great people. They do a great job every day. If one of them would have got, catastrophically injured, I
Or
don't know.
worse.
I would have been a mess. I would have been an absolute mess. And so we're very, very fortunate of that. But again, it's like, hey guys, Kansas City team helped immensely. Hey, you're gonna have to take care of operations until we get up and running. Denver helped immensely. Murray, Kentucky, Springfield, Missouri. They all just like, yep, we got you guys, no worries. But you can't control what happened. But I told them, I said, well, we can control what happens next, and that's the key to our team. So that was on a Friday. Saturday, we had about 20 people, I think, that work in the Rage facility. They all showed up, had spouses, they had kids. We had 40, 50 people out there just making sure everything was cleaned up. You had to start the inventory process. It's like, they're just so like cognizant of the situation that people they just do their shit, right? They just like, I'm going to take care of this. You do this, you do this, you do this. By
It's cool to see it all come together.
Yeah. Sunday at noon, we were ready for business. Monday, we didn't have power. We got power Tuesday at noon and didn't miss a beat, right? Now we're dealing with a lot of, the insurance company's been, I'd say, really good. I mean, to this point, we haven't had,
It's good to
we're
hear.
still working through the inventory, but it's pretty straightforward. It's a tornado, right? So, but yeah, I mean, everybody just like pitched in. It's like they have, team one, and that's their family, and team, 1.1 is Rage. And that's how they think. And it was pretty touching to see. And I was out of town. He said, I was at a wedding.
You were in scramble drill trying to get back here, I remember.
48 hours, 3 cities, 2 airlines, finally made it back midnight on Sunday. And I was just so surprised when I showed up on Monday and all the progress that was made, not only from, things cleaned up, but also from, you know, yep, inventory's here. We got the virtual warehouse set up over here. We're going to start putting stuff there. We've got this isolated as damage. I mean, just organization processes, they were just on top of it. And that's my weak point, right? I'm the guy that's like, okay, I'm going to go see customers. I'm going to make sure that we get this taken care of. But we just have such a great team. It was unbelievable to see. Like you
Yeah,
said, quite touching.
it's crazy when you have those shitty situations. I mean, I remember obviously ours was a little different as far as a neighborhood, but essentially everybody at our lake community was affected and had, I think, all but 2 houses. I had 26 inches of water in the basement, and it's like,
Yep.
all right, well, everybody's going through this shit together. So let's get the skid loaders rented. Let's get the dumpsters out here. Let's start tearing our houses apart. And then we're done with one. We move on to the next one, and it's, and then you also to see, the Midwest culture come to life and the people that are so giving, it was like, yeah, a lot of us were fortunate, but 2019, there was a lot of less fortunate individuals who were greatly impacted that needed some of that, stuff. And I know it was the same way in the tornadoes. Again, our lake community, because going through the flood in 2019, wives got a bunch of stuff together, donated it, and they literally said we were almost about to shut down donations because we have so much
Too many.
stuff.
Yeah.
Like, how cool is that? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
freaking awesome that
Yeah.
there's still good, as much bullshit goes on in the world today. I'm still a believer that humanity's, for the most part, pretty damn cool and good.
Well, lead by example. I think that's, whether you send it to your kids or to your neighbors or to your friends or whatever the case is. I mean, that's part of what we do. And, yeah, we're so fortunate to be insulated from some of that other stuff that goes on around the world. I know, David, you're on the East Coast and that, but there's good everywhere. It's just a matter of, how you deal with it, and what happens next and how you kind of
He's getting a
focus on
little,
what
he's
needs to
getting a
be
little
done.
Nebraska culture in him. He's been here enough now that he's always like, people here really like weirdly nice.
Well, I wish
He's like,
I wouldn't want to live in Nebraska because I love Florida so much, but I would love to just transplant, a good amount of people from Nebraska over into my neighborhood. But going back, it must have been when you showed up on site to bring this conversation full circle. It must have been pretty cool to see the culture of rage in action.
It was awesome. It was awesome. I mean, not that you want to, take anything away from a real shitty situation, but the work that not me, but everybody has done to create the team, it really blossomed that day, so to speak. And that, that's kind of really, I guess, but nonetheless, again, it was like we harvested something that day. It was like everybody came together as a team and everybody won as a team. I guess we won, it's a small victory sometimes, right? And that was a small victory that was really bigger than anything else we'd done together.
Another saying that comes to mind, it's usually around disagreements, but I think this could be categorized somewhat similarly in that conflict or bad scenarios like this, when handled directly, get shit done, but with some grace, tends to build relationships. So that shitty scenario, I'd imagine that the already strong relationships amongst everyone there got even stronger, particularly families being exposed to other families that maybe they hadn't met before. But when you're in the shit together, helping out, I'm sure additional friendships were formed that day that weren't formed previously.
No question about it. Yeah, 100%
Cool.
true. And
well, yeah, you've built a culture where you're willing to bring your spouse and your children to help. There's a lot of give a shit there, right? They care about, yeah, and that's pretty cool. That's special.
And the leadership kind of trickled down too. They'd actually looked at and we do a lot of projects, but I'm sure I know for a fact it's like, okay, this is what needs to be done today. And there's a goal set and everybody's working for a common goal. It wasn't just like, herding cats. It was very orchestrated.
I love it. Well, Larry, one of the things that we ask all of our guests is like a staple question in our episodes is a book that's had an impact, and it's our way of distilling a reading list for folks. And for those of you listening in, there was someone who had suggested to Landon. We're working on it. It's not live yet, but on our website we have sort of like a library of books that all the guests have suggested. So thank you for the feedback. We are working on it. It will get done. But that said, the book that you had chosen was Power of Habit. Tell us why you picked that book.
It's interesting because it's analytical, but yet simplistic. You understand how habits work. You can emulate them in the business world, and you can change and modify behavior. And not that we're trying to change and modify behavior of our teammates, but self-reflection, understanding that, you know, I can do something a little bit different, but it's a habit. I did find it interesting too, how it interacted with business, more so from a marketing standpoint. It's a lot of history in that book, from, you know, why do we use toothpaste? Why do we use toothpaste with sodium bicarbonate in it, you know? And it's I think it's emulating. I like books that you can take from a, you know, I just wrote this because it's a self-help book, but it relates to business. And I think it does a really, really good job of that. And that's where, and we've taken some stuff from it, trying to understand, you know, either was marketing or just day-to-day sales operations. Like, well, why do you do it this way? You know, well, probably just a habit, right? As far as like, why don't you use a CRM, right? How come we don't have any visibility on what you're doing? Well, it's how do we change that from a habit standpoint? And it's the cue, it's the process of doing it, and then, you know, the reward. And if you understand the 3, possibly 4 steps, there's craving involved in that too at some point. But nonetheless, those 3 basic steps of, you know, we just need to modify this middle thing right here. You know, the cue, okay, I've got to get paid, right? The reward is, you know, I sold something or whatever. I need to fix this, right? I just need to fix this middle part of it. So I think there's a lot to say from the, you know, habit forming and how it interacts with our day-to-day lives.
Well, as entrepreneurs listening in, I think we can all agree that one of the things we like the most is simplistic ideas. We tend not to be the brightest, but we work really hard and we like simple things. So I'm glad that book checks that box. But Larry, this has been awesome to say the least. And you know, if someone's listening in, you know, you had made mention, we didn't talk a ton about this today, but you had made mention about the social media content that you put out. Like, where you want to send people there, send people to your website, like where would you like people to go check you guys out?
The answer is yes. All the above.
All the above.
Yeah, so we do a little bit on everything. I think LinkedIn, Facebook, website is all encompasses those aspects of it. I think we do have, you know, I'm not an Instagram guy, but I know we do a little bit on Instagram. I think there's something on Twitter, but mainly the Facebook, LinkedIn, and then our website is all good resources for, you know, what does Rage do, so to speak.
Awesome.
And again, that's Rasmussen Air and Gas Energy. So
correct. Thank you, Rita.
Doesn't have to, butcher that one. Thanks, Rita.
And all those links will be in the show notes for all you guys to make it easy to find. But Larry, this was great. I am looking forward to meeting you in person. One thing I will say for anyone that knows Larry, hold him accountable, because in our prior conversation, we had talked about, I was on the tail end or just finished a water fast, and he had expressed some interest in that. And I asked him if he's done it yet. He says, no, but I plan to. So when you listen to this, ask him, have you started the water fast yet? So that's a little ball busting / accountability for you, Larry.
I might have to charge you for the help on officiating now. So there might be a fee involved. So we'll figure that out later. So
okay, well, that's fair. But
he does need to.
Hey, you know what though? Maybe, I don't know when this is going to happen, but when it gets cold, maybe I might have to make a field trip down to Florida to maybe experience that weather. So
Please do. You have a place to stay at our home. So happy to
I
host
dig
you.
it. Dig it. Dig it like a backhoe. Well,
All right,
thanks, gentlemen.
Larry, thank you. This has been great. Appreciate you.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Take care. Everybody have a great day.
Whoa. Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believed me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I make it look easy. Yeah, Mayweather with the defense. I don't care what a critic got to say. I got them picking up the pieces. That to me, you really playing with your life. I'm about to come.